Thank you very much. Thanks for having us again.
Nice to meet you.
Oh,
Very good to see you.
45.
Yeah, are you in that shower? Oh, good. Nice to meet you. 5 minutes. Thank you so much. Thank you. About an hour. Yeah, let's do it.
But Danforth, or what is your perception of the Greek community in Toronto, and what
That's
can
great.
improve on the Danforth?
Well, I got to be careful. One of my daughters is dating a young Greek gentleman, so I got to say everything good.
Oh,
I might be
that's-
part of your Greek community, and you may not know it. Anyways, the Greek community, hardworking people, entrepreneurs, starting businesses, creating jobs, giving back to the community. But I know one thing, especially along the Danforth, as you know better than I do, people came over here with nothing, started a little business, worked 20 hours a day, may start a little restaurant, and now those little restaurants may turn into big restaurants. Those little businesses people started turn into big businesses.
Mr. Ford, as you know, is one of the councillors of the going out board, and he is running, of course, for the position of the mayor. And I'm very glad that today he honors us with his presence, and he is with us. So, Mr. Ford, it's you.
Well, thank you very much. It's a real honor and privilege to be here as well. Last 4 years, we went in the way I describe it. It's like going in to a company or a corporation that's basically on the brink. And what I say by on the brink, they were spending more than what they were taking in. It doesn't work on our households, it doesn't work on small business, and it doesn't work at the City of Toronto. So as I'm sure some of you have heard on the debates, the first comments to myself and Rob were we're facing $774 million of pressure going into the year. And by the way, they'll need 24% tax hikes. And Rob and I said, people can't afford it. You can't keep going out and taxing them with the car registration tax, the land transfer tax, the residential tax. And by the way, the last 7 years of the administration before us increased taxes over 27%. They were spending $400 million a year, compounded, that's a special word, compounded year after year after year after year. And they said, you know, it can't be done, it can't be done. If you have the will, if you have the courage, the backbone to stand up for the people, it can be done. And we proved it could be done. The first year, we ended up coming out with a 0% tax increase. We ended up giving back that car registration tax. And by the way, we're the only jurisdiction that wanted to give people, you charge provincially, and then they added another tax. And a lot of people think, oh, well, $60, not a problem. So we ended up getting through that, and now after 4 years, I'm proud to say for the first time ever, we have a surplus. We don't have to rely on that surplus to fill the previous year's gap. We ended up with $248 million in the 2013 budget. We ended up with $30 million extra dollars that we didn't expect from the land transfer tax. The previous administration ended up raiding the reserves in a lot of different departments. We'd go in there, and the reserves are, I'm going to describe it simple. We have the budget, and then we have the reserves for, I call it the rainy day fund. The reserves, the storm that we saw July the 8th, the ice storm around Christmas time, and you dig into the reserves to cover yourself on different items, emergencies, and so on and so forth. The cupboards were empty, so we had to restock the cupboards per se. So we put 25% of the $248 million into reserves, rainy day fund, because we know something's going to happen. We got to be prepared. The rest went right into infrastructure. They were ignoring infrastructure on the Gardner. I sit on the budget committee, I'm the longest serving councillor in the city that sat 4 years as vice chair of the budget, going line item by line item. And I want to emphasize, we never did this by ourselves. It wasn't Rob and I. It was Rob's leadership, myself, great people on the committee, and it just makes me laugh when I hear, oh, you didn't get along. We're the only government, just think of it, the only government in recent memory that went to an election and said to the people of Toronto, this is our plan and we're going to get it done. So we did what we said we were going to do. We had one stumbling block, and that was land transfer tax. And there's no reason at all why we couldn't have reduced the land transfer tax by a certain percentage. I think we put out 10% at the time. We budgeted for $320 million, and surprise, because our economy is so hot right now, our city is booming and thriving, that the real estate market was really moving. So we ended up with $30 million extra dollars. And right away I thought, okay, so this affects, you know, the young couples, any couple actually, any person, and it also affects seniors. So say a senior wants to sell their house, and they sell it and they want to downsize. They want to go buy a condo. We're the only jurisdiction in this province that when they go buy that condo, they're paying the $8,000. Not only, I'm using $600,000 as an average home. Mind you, we all know it's hard to find any home in Toronto for $600,000, but I'm just using that as an example. On $600,000, $8,000 goes to the province, another $8,000 goes into the city. Now remember, it was about 8 years ago, roughly, we didn't have the land transfer tax. They just came up with this magical tax. It kills the economy. It drives jobs away. Rather than, as I met with the Toronto Real Estate Board, they were saying how it affects the economy drastically, affects the real estate market, and we have to be prudent fiscal managers. We have to find ways of running the city more efficiently, which we did. Right off the top, we found $750 million of efficiencies. And we increased services. They want to say we decrease them. They want to say, you know, TTC. We put $500 million into the TTC last year alone. I repeat, $500 million. We've put in $500 million into the Gardiner. If you go underneath the Gardiner, so when I was sitting on budget, we looked at the infrastructure and the capital budget. We're looking, all of a sudden, tens of millions of dollars got taken out of fixing the Gardiner and reallocated. I think there was 16, matter of fact, I believe it was $16 million was left. I'm thinking they were shifting money the last administration. So we put money back into it. Now we're over a 10-year period, we're putting $500 million in. You go underneath the Gardiner, it's all cleaned up. They're going to continue cleaning it up for the next 10 years. One area that everyone forgets about is the water system. We were able to look at new technology and reduce cost. There was a company called Furpol, and they came down to Chicago on a trade mission with us. Most interesting company with technology I've seen. And I'm going to try to describe this as simple as possible and not make it get confusing. You have a pipe, and I'm going to use my area as an example. There was Highway 27, so 4-lane highway basically. They would have to stop traffic for probably a couple weeks, dig up the highway all the way across, and then lay the new pipe. And if you saw these pipes, they were corroded. As soon as I saw it, I thought, how can we drink this water? You know, how? It goes through the filtration system, but it was all corroded and rusted. Some of the pipes in the city are 75 years old. And if you saw the corrosion inside, you'd say, I'm not drinking the water any longer. Furpol came up with technology that now they're using in the US because of our trade trip. It's a sleeve, and it goes into the existing pipe, and it gets shot through, almost like a stent. It gets shot through all the way across, and they have a rope on the other side of the highway, and they start pulling this through, and it's being heated up. And then the fiberglass forms a whole new liner inside. So you do not have to tear up the roads. You don't have to replace the pipe. and it's about 30% cheaper. Not mentioning that those are hard costs, not mentioning soft costs too of traffic disruption. So through technology, we're finding new innovative ways of doing things better. The same as when they dig down and they're replacing some of the sewers and that, a company came to us and said, right now what's happening, they dig down by the sewer, they put the barriers up on the road so you have traffic congestion. This company was forming off-site. Right now, for years they did it on-site, so if it rained, there's a delay, they'd put it in, then they'd start forming the concrete in the hole. What happened is this company came along and they said, I'm gonna form it off-site, we're gonna come in, dig the hole, we're gonna drop it, we're gonna fill it. So I go to the person, head of water, and they're doing it this company's doing it all over the country. They're doing it in Calgary, they're doing it down in the States, and they're doing it everywhere but Toronto. They do it in Mississauga. So I called my friend Hazel McKellion up. And I said, Hazel, is this for real? You know, is this person doing what they say they're doing? A big company. I don't know any reason why they wouldn't. She said, it works great. It cuts down on traffic. So I get the head of water, and he says, well, Doug, we have to go with the Metro spec, he called it. I said, so what's the Metro spec? And I look into the Metro spec. The last time, do you know when they put this Metro spec together? In the 1960s. And just because no one had the will to be creative, to stand up and say, let's make the changes, it just stood still. So what we did, we ended up getting the engineers to approve the system. We sent them out to the company to do their audit. They came back, did their audit. Bingo, we're saving money. It's a lot cheaper as well. We're saving money, making things more efficient. It's technology. But if you just left it up to the bureaucrats, the government workers, they just take the easy way out. And we have great government workers, don't get me wrong, I'm a big supporter of them. But they need someone to drive them and say, do it. Because if not, they go like that, yeah, let's just keep things the way they are. If you don't have continuous improvement in government, in any corporation, you're going to fail. Bottom line, you're going to go bankrupt, you're going to be in debt, you got to have continuous ideas on technology and improvement. So on the technology side, in every single area, right down to the command center for the traffic, updating the command center with new technology, making sure we have light coordination done. We did 1,000 intersections across the city. Then we added, 2 months ago, we added another 500. I plan on doing that right across the city. The transportation department told me it creates 20% efficiencies when you coordinate all the lights. So we did that on all the busiest intersections. Now we're going to continue doing it across the city. On the procurement department, I sit on government management. So let me back up a little bit. When I first went down there, my expertise is finances, looking at money, looking at the bottom line. And Rob said, you know, Doug, anywhere there's money, I need you to be there, keep an eye on things. So I was a vice chair of budget. I never took a chair position either. I just want to be clear on that. I could have been a chair of anything. I said, no, let other people do it. I'll always be the vice chair. So on budget, we went through line item by line item, first time ever. It's really incredible. First time ever, we went line item by line item by line item. We brought a third party in, one of the largest accounting firms in the world, KPMG. We knew where the savings were, but if we went to council, we went to the public and said, our team knows where the savings are, here they are. They'd say, you're lying, you aren't telling the truth, you aren't doing that. So we brought professionals in, and we call it third-party validation. So did they validate it? There's hundreds of millions of dollars of savings. We took the recommendation, and we implemented it. Now on the procurement side, there was 9,000 P cards, which are purchasing cards, MasterCards. Just imagine, one out of, what is there, 53,000 employees, roughly 1 out of 5 people had a credit card. And they didn't even have track of it. It wasn't online. So really, they couldn't get a handle on who was spending what. They'll say they did, but they didn't. So immediately, we put everything online. So it's accountable and it's transparent. And as soon as you hold people account, it's amazing how things change. It's no different than our house, right? My house, your house. I have 4 girls. If I give them a credit card, they'll go hog wild. But if I hold them to account and give them a budget, there's only so far they can go. So we did that as well. We stopped the sole source deals. So, you know, the sole source deals were running wild, just wild, hundreds of millions of dollars. As soon as I see a sole source deal, you know, my antenna goes up. I'm thinking, okay, it's someone's buddy. There's no reason, to the exception of proprietary parts, there's no reason to have a sole source deal. You go out for bid on absolutely everything. It's no different than you're buying an expensive television. You're going to go out, you're going to see, you know, what ABC store does, DEF store, and you're going to compare them. Not at City Hall before. So we come in and we say, okay, everything to the exception of proprietary parts gets excluded. Even the one, would you believe they went out and they spent $1.2 billion on sole sourcing streetcars? Went to one company. There was other companies that wanted to bid, and they were refused. And I'll name them, Siemens, one in particular. Siemens said, I want to bid. The city said, no, we don't do that any longer. We eliminated sole source deals to the exception of proprietary parts. And they used to have to pull me down from the ceiling in government management meetings. But they go out, they'll buy, I'll give you an example, street sweepers. So they go out and buy all these street sweepers. Well, the problem is with buying one street sweeper, you're stuck with maintenance and parts. But it's relatively small compared to the large purchases. So we cut down all sole source deals. I believe, without even looking at my notes, I believe it was about 75% stopped immediately. Everything went out for bid, which was good. So we brought a handle on that. The counselors, you wonder why, even though it's politics, and it's not, as I always say to my friends that debate us, it's not a church picnic. We all get along well outside of the council. As I've said numerous times, even people I disagree with, we go out for lunch, and as soon as we get back in the council chamber, everyone takes their positions and debates and their beliefs, which is fine. But you have to hold them accountable. They had a slush fund of $53,000. Councilors are going out, spending it on cappuccino machines, parties, bunny suits. They were going on trips. It was their own personal slush fund, I called it. Self-promoting brochures to tell everyone how wonderful they are. They do mailers before the election. So the incumbent had the advantage. It's hard to knock off an incumbent. So we chopped that down to $30,000. Now, when you go to anyone and you take $23,000, 1/3 of their money off them, do you think you make friends? No, they want that money back. So what they did last year, they're crafty, I'll tell you. And by the way, on top of that, they all had, when all of us had to pay, they get free TTC, they get free golf passes, they get free parking, free this, free that. Everything was free. We cut that off. And so what they do last year, when they took the powers off the mayor, councillors, they built a separate little secret little fund, they call it. And a couple councillors ended up, are you ready for this one? This is amazing. Spent more on their little slush fund, as I call it, than they did what they made. There's councillors that spent $80,000, $85,000. And I'm thinking, you gotta be kidding. And they all stick together like glue. You know, it's like, the wildebeest, as I say, they all stick in a pack. And then when Rob and I come and challenge them, you wonder why there's 42-2. They aren't going to do anything. It's like, it's appropriate for Thanksgiving. When I went up and I said, we have 22 MPs, we have 22 MPPs, for some mysterious reason, we have double the amount of municipal politicians For what reason? Don't know. But you can run things a lot more efficiently. Good governance at any board says you shouldn't have more, maximum maybe 9, maximum 11 people. There's a reason. We could have the brightest people. What do we have, 20 people around the table? We could have the brightest 20 people in this room right now. I'll tell you one thing, it's tough to get things done when there's 20 people in charge. I could take, let's say everyone's equal, right? I could take 10, split it in half, and get things done a lot quicker with 10 people than you can with 20 people. That's the same as City Hall. You cut it down. So we put the motion on the table, and I say it's appropriate for Thanksgiving, because it's like asking the turkeys if they want to go to Thanksgiving. They're going to be voting no, I'll guarantee you. So that was sent down, but even if we did say yes, it's up to the province. We're a creature of the province. The province actually controls the city. Even though they'll listen to it based on the votes, but they still have us under the thumb, have the control. So I believe that we should have more powers as a city. Our city is the 6th largest economy in the country. The exports, I'm going to read some of these out. Toronto alone does exports of $70 billion a year. These are staggering numbers. We approved of new development. The number one comment when people fly into Toronto all around the world, the number one comment is, oh my God, look at the cranes you have. As soon as they see cranes, it means prosperity. Every crane, if you add up every carpenter, everyone, is 2,000 jobs. So it means prosperity. That's what they would say. And going back to tourism, you know, we're on the map. We're definitely on the map. We went from 8.6 million, we're jumped up to over 14 million visitors this year. We have destroyed every record there is in the city on a positive note, on a very positive note. So 14 million visitors have come in. We have $29 billion of new development. We issued, and these numbers even amaze me, and I've seen them, but they're shocking to me. We issued 140,000 building permits. In the last term, it was barely half of that, only 72,000. How did we do it? Rob and I went in there with the team. I always emphasize the team. It's important. You can't do it yourself. With our team, we cut the red tape. Developers will come to us and say, you know, this building's being held up for, I don't know, a little pipe. And we're thinking, you got to be kidding. We have a 60-story building being held up, thousands of jobs over some bureaucracy? Because a building permit has to go to each department. Rob would call the head of building in, call everyone in. What's the problem? Well, it's just a little pipe. You got to be kidding me. Is it safe? Is everyone going to be? Yeah, they just got to fix the problem. I want their building permit ready by tomorrow. They fix the problem, building permit's ready, bang, we move forward. So we streamline the process, and it still needs more streamlining, by the way. We approved $10 billion of commercial and industrial development. So if you think of $10 billion, every building needs someone to work in it, right? If they're putting new commercial and industrial, that's employment. We issued 60,000 commercial and industrial building permits. That totaled the $10 billion. KPMG, as I said earlier, just came out and said we're the most tax competitive market, not in just Canada, not in North America, but the entire world. The entire world. That's not our administration saying it. This is third parties that are telling us this. We're ranked number 1 in the world to work, number 2 in the world to live, number 1 with Sydney, Australia. And I disagree. I love the people in Sydney, beautiful city. We're better than Sydney. So we'll have to gear up to be number 1 next year. But, you know, I hear my competitors on these debates saying, we have a good city. No. I've traveled the world. we have the greatest city in the world. Can we be better? 100%. Anyone who sits back and says, yeah, we're great, nothing, no, you end up falling behind. So once you're on top, you have to stay on top. Keep driving efficiencies. Keep standing up for the people. And as they say, the common people, the average person that hasn't had a voice in 30, 40 years. I don't care where you go in the world, no matter what country you come from, there's a certain class, I call them the establishment, that controls things. It was no different here. All of a sudden, this guy, Rob Ford, came along, the average guy. And when little Miss Jones called him up out in Scarborough, here comes a mayor, hops in his car, and he's driving out there in the 4th largest city in the world. And people would say, well, he has more important things to do than help Mrs. Jones fix a pothole. No, you're wrong. Rob would go help Mrs. Jones fix the pothole because it would drive her crazy. Every time she'd drive over it, you hear ba-boom, ba-boom. All of a sudden she drives out, she thinks of Rob every day if she goes over that pothole and it's not there. But Rob doesn't do one house. He goes to the street, he'll door knock that whole street and everyone starts coming out. We got this issue, that issue. This is the neighborhood. That's customer service excellence. Everyone says, what's the difference between you and Rob? Rob is the best, and even his detractors, if they're honest, even the, as I call them, the lefties downtown will tell you this. There's no politician better on customer service, retail politics than Rob Ford. We all know Rob has other faults, but when it comes to taking care of the little person, and they call up, and he calls back, and he says, the mayor, people can't believe he's on the phone calling him back. You know, he's better than I am on that. You know, and he'll sit, and I'm using a generic Mrs. Jones, right? So he'll sit and talk to little Mrs. Jones that lost her husband 4 years ago. She's 75 years old. Rob will sit on a Friday night and talk to her for 20 minutes. He's the best listener in the world. I'm different. I want to help Mrs. Jones. I'll get on the phone. Mrs. Jones, how can I help you? You need a tree trimmed? Okay, bing, bang, bang, boom, boom, I'm gone. I want to get it done. Rob's a good listener. So I just want to get the things done. So those are some of the little differences. And a lot of people ask me, are you different than your brother? My question back to them, everyone around this table, do you have a sibling? Do you have a brother or sister? Maybe not all of you? I ask you the question, are you exactly the same as your brother or sister? No, there isn't one person, no. I want to tell you, I love my brother more than anything in the world, as you've seen over the years, but we're different. We're different. He has the good things, he has bad things. I have good things, we have bad things. So we're different. Do we share the same philosophies of taking care of the little guy, as they say? 100%. Do we take care of the same philosophies of watching every single penny? 100%. But there are some other differences there. I look forward over the next 4 years to make sure this city thrives. I know I have a great relationship with the federal government, a great relationship with the Prime Minister. I have a good relationship, and I don't know the Premier well, but I believe the Premier respects democracy, just like the previous Premier did, that sat down with us it wasn't even a year ago, back in August, a little over a year ago, we sat down with the Premier, the Prime Minister, and City Council, and we delivered subways to the people of Scarborough. Just imagine being ignored since inception, since they came up with subways. And everyone else got subways. And they left certain parts of the city out and said, you pay the same taxes, but by the way, we're going to let you guys stand out in the freezing cold in the winter and stand and wait for this LRT that will rip up the roads, destroy the traffic. It's terrible for the economy. All you have to do, I challenge each and every one of you, try to drive down St. Clair tonight. You won't get home. You'll be there for 2 hours. It's an absolute, we call it the St. Clair disaster. Went over 3 times over budget. It's still a mess. We can't sit back and let the city get destroyed on transit. My 2 competitors want to rip up the roads on Shepherd and put on LRT. They want to rip up the roads on Finch. They want to rip up the roads on Eglinton. And I'm thinking, you gotta be kidding. You can either be, I'm a business owner. When I go buy a piece of equipment, I'll make it easy. When you go buy a car, you can get the cheap little car that's gonna last you 3-4 years, or you're gonna get a quality car that might last you 8 years. Same as transit. You can have LRTs that take up 2 lanes of traffic and cause major congestion. And we're growing, by the way. In the next 20, 30 years, we'll be double the size. You got to think of the future. And thank God for our forefathers before us that came up with the Bloor line. Because there was a big debate many years ago about should we go above ground or below ground. Thank God there were visionaries. You have to think not just about us. Let's think about the next generation and the next generation after that. That you go anywhere in the world, the major cities. You go anywhere in a major city in Asia. They have rapid underground transit. We had companies from Asia come over and tell us, we will finance it and we will build it at half the cost in half the time. We had companies from Spain come over. Again, we'll do it. We're experts. You go to Madrid, they're experts in tunneling. You go over to Paris, subways everywhere. You go to London, you have 450 subway stations. We have 68. They have 408. So I think it's pretty simple. You either go with a system, like Mr. Tory's saying, that, and again, I'm just telling you the facts. I'm not being critical, but I can't, as a businessman, can't even comprehend this. Imagine going, you're my board of directors. And I go up to the board of directors and I say, here's a plan. It's an $8 billion plan. And oh, by the way, I've had no engineering firm look at it. It's staggering. And there's actually some people that are so naive that actually buy it. They say, oh yeah, it sounds good. You know, it doesn't even connect to the existing system. So you get off at one station, you gotta walk a half a kilometer through buildings, around houses. And I'm thinking this is just a hokey-pokey, grandiose idea, hasn't been thought out. The common sense thing to do is your existing infrastructure. It's like building a house. You add on to it and you slowly keep adding and adding and adding and you connect it so it becomes integrated. It's kind of a no-brainer as far as I'm concerned. What I'm proposing, $9 billion, 32 kilometers of subways, including Finch, including Shepherd, including the Eglinton line, including the downtown relief line. That is what we need to be a world-class city. I had friends come by from Chicago. I'll never forget what they said. We're driving down Dundas, and they're behind the streetcar, and the streetcar tries to go around the corner, and the wires come off, right? You've seen it before. The bus driver gets out, gets his big long pole, and he's hitting it up in the air, and there's cars behind him lined up, honking, and he's trying to connect it. And the guys from Chicago looked at me and said, are you guys living in the 1900s? This is so antiquated. And I said, I don't understand. Maybe for historical reasons, I'd keep a couple along Spadina just for the sake of putting them there, I guess. But the rest have to go. You get articulated buses that can move in and out of traffic. I'm not too sure if anyone's ever driven down Queen, King, or Dundas during the rush hour in the morning. And God bless the bikers, because my kids bike, okay? God bless them. But you have the streetcar going down, then you have these bicycle riders going down the center of the road half the time, going through red lights, and you're stuck behind them, and you're literally going 5 miles an hour. And as soon as you try to get by the streetcar, bang, those doors open up, people run out. They're dangerous. Bury everything. And when you bury everything, guess what happens? Development on top. If you want to get rid of car congestion, because everyone forgets, everyone talks transit, 30% of the people use public transit. 70% of the people drive. But everyone's forgetting of the people that drive. That's important. And if you're going to drive, I call it the one bum ride. So right now, say you live out in Scarborough, the far reaches of Scarborough, when I'm door knocking and they said, you know, I got a problem with employment. The problem I'm facing is if I want to get from the far reaches of Scarborough and I have a great job in North York or even the downtown or out in Etobicoke, it will take me 2 hours. I got to take a bus. I get off the bus. I hop on the subway. I get off the subway, go on an LRT over to a streetcar. If I'm a driver, I'm not getting out of my car. But if someone said, Doug, I'm getting you on this subway and we're going from point A to point B, it's going to take a half an hour, makes sense. You're going to get out of your car. You're going to use it. I call that the one bum ride. So you get on all the way around. I just want to point, and it's kind of probably hard to see here. I got notes all scratched. I should have brought my bigger map. So I show people this map, and I'm going to point out right along here. This is the existing Shepherd line, and it goes out to Don Mills. Okay? There's approximately, from Don Mills to McCowan, there's approximately 7 kilometers. Packed. I was there the other day. Packed full of cars. Their plan, John Tory's and Olivia Chow's, again, this is, I'm thinking I'm on another planet when I talk to these guys. You get off Don Mills, they want you to go out of the subway, and it was windy yesterday. I couldn't even imagine in the cold. They want you to get out, go up 3 flights of stairs, hop on an LRT, go 7 kilometers along the road, get off after 7 kilometers, go back downstairs and hop on another subway. Like, wouldn't you think for the next 100 years you just connect 7 kilometers of road, and so you have a continuous loop all the way around the city on a subway? I don't understand it. And then they sit there and say, you know, oh, you peg one against it. No, I don't peg anyone against anyone. All I want is the people out in Scarborough, North York, and York, East York, and Etobicoke. I just want them to have fair and equitable transit. I want downtown people to have subways as much as I want the people of Scarborough. But there's no way I'm going to stand back and say, we're going to have a 2-tiered system. Everyone else around there, you guys are freezing, you're standing out cold, you're getting 2-tier transportation. And by the way, everyone else down here, you're getting preferential treatment, you're getting great transit. And they sit back and, you know, my 2 competitors, well, you know, you got to get along. Well, I find it ironic. You're snubbing these people, snubbing all the rest of them, and you're focusing on one area. I'm focusing on the entire city. Because what is good for downtown is good for Scarborough, good for North York, and good for Etobicoke. You hop on a transit, and you get there quickly. You don't want this, I call it the backtrack system. Anyways, I could talk for 2 more hours. I'm gonna take questions, because I could just keep going all day.